I'm Liz Faublis, and this is Currents. A pause in the fighting in Syria. Will the truce hold through the weekend? A father shares his heartfelt feelings. He visits his daughter as she fights for her life. And Bishop DiMarzio will be here to take us into the deep. Tonight, the topic is so important, it will last a year. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Currents Week in Review. New, that was the word throughout the week at the Vatican. New saints, new cardinals, and the new evangelization. But first, the new truce in the Syrian civil war. Brokered by the UN Special Envoy to the conflict, for the most part, it seems to be holding. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad made a rare public appearance to attend prayers early this morning, broadcast live on national TV. Taking advantage of quieter streets, anti-Assad protesters renewed their calls for his ouster and execution. The truce is supposed to last 4 days, coinciding with a Muslim holiday. And while large sections of the country are said to be calmer, reports of fighting and killing continue to come in. One especially disturbing report: the body of a martyred priest has been found north of Damascus. Father Fadi Haddad was kidnapped last week. A ransom of $700,000 was demanded. The priest's family could not pay. Father Haddad was a Greek Orthodox priest. A colleague says he was horribly tortured and is a martyr of their church. The murder highlights the breakdown in order in war-torn Syria. Now armed gangs roam the country, with Christians often their target. A ransom demand for the release of 3 Catholic priests has been made in the Congo. Earlier this week, we reported an armed gang had kidnapped the priest. The local bishop received the demand. No word about the amount or even if the demand is considered genuine. Meantime, Archbishop John Onaiyekan of Nigeria is saying his country deserves more recognition for living in peace. Nigeria's population is half Christian, half Muslim, and the Archbishop says most of the time they live in peace. The Archbishop also is part of the new cardinal story. He is one of 6 named by Pope Benedict this week. The youngest is Archbishop Basilius Cleemis Totenkal of India. He leads an Eastern Rite Catholic church in the southern part of the country.
Of course, it's an honor given to the church in India, and especially the church of the Syro-Malankara Catholic.
The Syro-Malankara Church has about 400,050 members. The elevation of the Archbishop of Manila to the College of Cardinals is being seen as a major step in bringing the new evangelization to Asia, as we hear in this Rome Reports.
On November 24th, Manila's Archbishop Luis Antonio Tagle will become a cardinal of the Catholic Church. He will be one of 6 new cardinals appointed by Benedict XVI. Tagle is 55 years old, so once appointed, he will be the second youngest cardinal. The youngest will be 53-year-old Basilius Cleemis Totenkal, who serves as the major archbishop of the Syro-Malankara Church. He will also be appointed in November. Manila's archbishop says that his appointment shows that the Pope wants the Philippines to take an active role in the new evangelization.
It is a sign of the great trust and appreciation of the Holy Father, not only towards me, but towards the church in the Philippines. And this grace, this is really a grace, no? But every grace that comes from God has a corresponding responsibility. And so I think this is a call for us in Manila and the whole Philippines to take seriously our mission to evangelize, especially Asia.
This coming consistory will strengthen the Asian presence in the College of Cardinals, since the church in Asia is growing and its role is becoming increasingly important.
We are also happy that many Filipinos, especially those who are working outside of the Philippines, bring their faith. For example, here in Italy, there are so many Filipinos working in homes and families. And I know, because I know that they bring their devotions, their faith, and without their knowing it, they are really missionaries. So this is really an honor, but also a mission to all of us.
Tagle was named Archbishop of Manila roughly a year ago. He's quite popular in the Philippines and is also very active on social networking sites, including Facebook.
And the consistory for the new cardinals is set for November 24th. The new saints of our church were canonized on Sunday, 7 holy women and men. 2 were cause for joy by New Yorkers. St. Kateri Tekakwitha and St. Marian Cope each had their roots in our state. Now we learn in this Catholic News Services report, those 2 Americans are joined by another.
On Sunday, October 21st, Pedro Calungsod was one of 7 saints canonized by Pope Benedict XVI. 3 of the new saints have connections to the United States. St. Pedro was martyred for the faith at the age of 17 while serving as a missionary in Guam.
It can be a shining example really for youth of today struggling in their life. Hopefully people can find some kind of a route to root their lives with that is more meaningful than what the world offers, because many of them are deluded by all the fantasies that the world has to offer and this modern world does. Pedro Calungsod lived his life in a very simple way, but in a faith-filled way, and that's the example that we want to pass on.
The German-born Mother Marianne Cope grew up and studied in New York State. She spent the second half of her life in Hawaii, where she took up the work of St. Damien of Molokai, caring for leprosy patients.
I'm really proud of it because 2 of them from the same county, the smallest county in Hawaii. Those 2 put Hawaii on a map.
Another Hawaiian pilgrim summed up what he said was St. Marianne's message.
Never underestimate someone else's sickness. Don't be afraid to challenge the unchallenged. The unknown, and she gave her life up to be there.
St. Kateri Tekakwitha is the first American Indian saint. Archbishop Charles Chaput of Philadelphia, who is of American Indian descent, said that St. Kateri can be a patron of the struggle for religious freedom.
I think many young people today are embarrassed about embracing the Catholic faith because they live in a secular culture that's hostile towards religious expression. And Blessed Kateri grew up in a place where there was great hostility towards Christianity. So she was under great family pressure and tribal pressure not to become a Christian, and once she became a Christian, to reject that. So in some ways she would be a model of fidelity in the face of persecution for religious freedom, on religious freedom grounds. Also, she would be a patron of the new evangelization. Again, a young, vibrant member of her community is different than the rest of them because of her unique personal relationship with Jesus Christ, which is what sanctity generally is about. It's about taking Christ seriously in a personal way, in ways beyond where most of us go.
There's more currents ahead, a vote for the president, and something else new at the Vatican as our Week in Review continues after the break. Welcome back to Currents Week in Review. The election has been a top story throughout the week, and now we are able to reliably report President Obama has at least 1 vote. He voted yesterday in Chicago, his hometown. The state has early voting. The president made a little bit of history. He's the first sitting president to vote early in person. And the president has also won the backing of Colin Powell. The former Secretary of State endorsed the president just as he did in 2008. We have also reported about the important role Catholics will play in the election. In fact, Catholics may hold the key to victory, and leading American bishops have been speaking about the political issues that are most important to the faithful. Now, the Vatican is creating a new collection of documents representing the teachings of the Church on crucial social issues. Called the Compendium of the Social Doctrine of the Church, it is now available to everyone on the Vatican website. Both inside and outside the Vatican, there's been a lot of talk about the new cardinals we reviewed earlier in the broadcast. They are the men, after all, who will vote for the next pope when that time arrives. Some Vatican observers are wondering why the pope is acting now and if he's doing too much too fast. So to get some answers, earlier today I turned to Currents contributor Rocco Palmo, he's a highly regarded analyst and author of the popular blog Whispers in the Loggia. I asked him if he thought the Holy Father's actions were unusual.
We're actually almost returning to tradition with this new group. However, the significant thing here, well, I think there are a couple things. First off, there have been significant criticisms of the Holy Father and his manner of picking cardinals, that in the recent batches, there has not, they've been too excessively weighted toward Italians and toward his top aides in the Roman Curia. One thing that's significant here is that the person who everyone expected would be the first cardinal on any new list, the head of the Vatican's Orthodoxy watchdog, the head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, Archbishop Gerhard Muller, was not named a cardinal here. Okay. He's going to have to wait. That's historic. That's unprecedented. That's unheard of. But beyond that, this is really an Eastern-focused list. The only quote-unquote Westerner named, even though he's been in Rome for 30 years, is an American, Archbishop James Harvey, who's now actually being moved out of the Vatican to the Basilica of St. Paul's outside the walls. But, you have the Middle East represented, you have India's fast-growing Eastern Church Catholic community represented, and, of course, the 55-year-old Archbishop of Manila, who's been dubbed either the Golden Child or, for the boxing fans out there, the Thriller from Manila, Cardinal Designate Chito Tagle.
I am familiar with that term, and I am a little bit of a boxing fan, actually. Rocco, is there concern that Pope Benedict is sensing that perhaps his own time is limited? Maybe he might feel that his health is getting a little bit weaker and has called the consistory quickly to be sure that he leaves no important business undone?
Well, it's important to know here, Liz, that normally you can see a consistory coming from weeks, if not months out. This, in 20 years of seeing consistories happen, this is the first time I and it seems everybody in Rome and even most cardinals were just completely blindsided by it. My phone started screaming at me at 6:45 Wednesday morning, and I immediately started calling over there asking people, did you have any idea about this? And apparently people who were in the formal chain of communication, or supposed to be, had no clue that this was coming. Now, it's important to note that Pope Benedict, being 85, having had a stroke, and now walking with a cane and generally slowing down, unlike his predecessors and really any pope since the 1200s, this pope has left the door open to possibly resigning the papacy because he knows the importance of the physical presence of the pope in our media environment, in our world, and if he physically couldn't do it, he said, then I'm going to have to quit. He doesn't have the same kind of personalization of the office concept that John Paul II did. But, I think the key here, or part of the key here, is not, filling up the College of Cardinals, but the fact that every consistory in each of the 5 he's done, the day before, the Holy Father gathers the College of Cardinals for a day of discussion. And usually 2 or 3 issues are presented by the Pope and discussed at length for 2 hours. That gives the college an opportunity to get to know each other. Because in 2005, this Pope, as the elected dean of the College of Cardinals, presided over all the meetings of the cardinals between the death of John Paul II and the conclave that ended up electing him the Pope. And the key conclusion of those meetings was that the cardinals were looking at each other like they were from outer space. They didn't know each other well. They would get together for ceremonies in Rome, but they had no opportunity to actually exchange views and hear each other out. And so John Paul II only convoked the cardinals for actual discussions at 6 points during his 27-year papacy. 7 years into his own papacy, Benedict will now have convoked the cardinals for actual discussions 5 times. A big change.
And Rocco, in a bit of intrigue here, and I saved this one for last, and in the time that we have left, one official of the Roman Curia listed among the new cardinals, Archbishop James Michael Harvey, the prefect of the pontifical household, under whose supervision, and no one is suggesting that the Archbishop had any hand in the so-called Vatican scandal. I want to put that out there. But under his supervision, Paolo Gabrielli stands accused of betraying the pontiff by stealing private documents. So in the time we have left, is it possible that the Commission of Cardinals assigned to investigate the leaks suggested that some changes in the administration of the pontifical household were necessary, hence this elevation?
I would doubt that, Liz. I mean, as you know, the trial of Paolo Gabrielli has gotten a lot of attention in the global press, but I mean, clearly, judging by the ratings of Downton Abbey, people like a good soap opera. I think that Archbishop Harvey and Cardinal Designate Harvey now from Milwaukee hasn't been in the best of health the last couple of years, and he's been prefect of the papal household. Really, he was the last holdover from the pontificate of Pope John Paul II. What's interesting is that he's going to a basilica, which is normally a post reserved for a retired prelate at 63, but I think, again, that's more a commentary on his health. But one more thing that's interesting, there's going to be a cardinal from India, Cardinal Basilios Klemis, who's the head of one of the Eastern churches there, the Siro-Malankara Church, 600,000 members worldwide. They only have one foothold outside of India, and this will be of interest to the net viewership. And their only foothold outside of India, their only diocese outside of India, is actually just based on Long Island in West Hyde Park.
Really?
Yeah, it was just instituted a year ago. And they're growing quick. John Paul II called them the fastest growing community in the Catholic Church. And so it's real testimony for a community so small to have a cardinal, not just any cardinal, but one who's going to be the youngest at 53 years old. It's a fascinating story.
All right, Rocco, thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on. You always bring a lot more to the topic than we ever expected. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Liz. I just try and do my best. Be well.
Thank you. You too. Current's Week in Review will continue after the break. Bishop DiMarzio is next. He tells us why the new year of faith is so important. Next. With all that has been happening in Rome this week, it is important to remember the larger goals of the Pope and the Church, the new evangelization to bring God's word to the world, and the Year of Faith, designed to support that undertaking. Both initiatives build on the work done at the Second Vatican Council 50 years ago. In fact, the start of the Year of Faith was timed to the Council's anniversary. Now, the head of the Vatican Supreme Court is saying Vatican II was betrayed. Cardinal Raymond Burke, an American, says a breakdown inside the church led to that betrayal. He said the great excitement about reforms promoted at the council also fostered an attitude of hostility toward church discipline. And without adherence to the fundamental teachings of the church, the promise of the council was betrayed. Our bishop, Bishop DiMarzio, has been leading the diocese into the Year of Faith. Now he leads us all into the deep. Our news director, Ed Wilkinson, asked him about the Year of Faith and the Pope's intentions.
Bishop, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
We have started a Year of Faith here in the diocese and in the entire church, the worldwide church. Why did Pope Benedict XVI call for a Year of Faith?
I think to clarify what faith is, and a situation in our world when we see a diminution of faith worldwide. Our Catholic faith has a content. It's not just something we say, well, we believe, but what do you believe in? And the Year of Faith gives us an opportunity to figure out what we believe in, why we believe, but most of all, then to share that belief with others. That's what the whole point is.
Are we talking about the doctrines of our faith, or are we talking about the very concept of faith? I mean, in this secular society that we live in, everybody wants a scientific proof for things.
I think Benedict clarifies it. He says it's not just doctrines, it's not just the proof. We're talking about the person of Jesus Christ. That's what the Year of Faith is about. How do we know Jesus? How do we communicate who Jesus is and his message to other people? So it is a person. It's not a set of doctrines, not the creed or whatever else. It's beyond that. It's more who those beliefs represent, and that's a person.
Sure. You said in your homily at the opening Vespers service that many people are coming to find Jesus, and it's not through the Catholic Church. Yeah. And you used the example of Joe Girardi, the Yankees manager. Why do you think that's so? I mean, is that what we have to come to grapple with during this Year of Faith?
I think so. I think we have to understand that there is a need out there that people have for faith and for Jesus Christ, for Christianity. And yet, somehow, the way we operate makes it difficult for people to find the Christ in what we do. That's the whole point of the Second Vatican Council. It was to make sure that we didn't lose the gospel, that we had that our presentation of the gospel, we were being faithful to it, and we looked at our position and how we were teaching, and many things were brought up to date in a sense, allowing us to talk to the modern world. That was the point. And the Year of Faith on the anniversary of the Second Vatican Council is basically the same thing, looking at how we operate, how we can better have the message Jesus communicated. The world changes very rapidly. It isn't the way it used to be. It took a century. Now it takes 10 years, and you're living in a new world, new atmosphere, especially with the media. So we do have to rethink our presentation of the person of Jesus Christ. How can we make the encounter with Christ more accessible to people?
On a practical level, what do you think that parishes can be doing to better evangelize and to better be witnesses to the faith?
Well, first they've got to work with the people that are in front of them in the pews, because they need to be good witnesses. They have to learn how to be witnesses to the faith. They have to understand their faith better. That's why one of the suggestions is that the Catechism of the Catholic Church is something we preach on, that we let people understand better, that we teach better. So the content there helps them form themselves as witnesses. And then as witnesses, they can then be the evangelizers going out as ministers of the new evangelization to share their faith with others.
Yeah, this is the 20th anniversary also of the Catechism. We used to call it the New Catechism, but it's the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Do you think we could put that book, that volume, to better use, say, with study groups in our parishes?
I think so. There's recently they did a kind of a précis book. It's made it simpler. I mean, it's a lot of information there, a lot of references, and it is probably the definitive bringing everything together. It's a definitive work, but it's not easy for everybody to use or understand. So the newer condensations are very much user-friendly, so I think that could be a help.
So is the Year of Faith meant to evangelize other Catholics, or is it meant to reach out beyond?
Both. It's both for Catholics, fallen away Catholics, and those who have never understood and come to the faith. It's for all three groups, actually.
And what are some of the things that the diocese is sponsoring? There are going to be some talks and different events that are coming up?
Right. It's event driven in many ways also, but it's parish based because that's where people are. They're in the parishes. Certain diocesan events we're going to kick off with the pilgrimage this year as being our opening event. We had the Vespers on the anniversary of the Second Vatican Council opening, and the listing is quite extensive. There's a lot of things we're going to change for the Year of Faith so that it does fit in better with the theme.
Okay, we'll be watching and covering. And,
okay.
Thanks for talking with us about it today.
Very good to be here.
We continue with more currents after the break. Malala's father visits her and he expresses his thanks to his God and to the world. Next. Welcome back. Throughout this week, we had several reports on the Synod of Bishops as the Church Fathers complete their work. Final proposals are being prepared for the Pope's approval. Now we're learning a so-called buzzword has developed at the bishops' meetings: Islam. The church leaders are directing their attention to rekindling a Catholic missionary zeal to counter the rise of Islam in Europe. And finally tonight, good news about the teenage girl who has fought against the most radical elements of Islamism, Malala against the Taliban. Now, by now, the world knows her story. Gunned down on a school bus because she fought for the rights of schoolgirls in Pakistan. She's being treated in England for her wounds. Her doctor tells us how she's doing.
She's continuing to make very good progress clinically. All the signs of infection are now gone, we're pleased to say. Really, we're very much in a phase of her care which is about recovery, both physical and psychological. She's, when I saw her just now, she's very tired, but obviously did manage a big smile for her mum and dad and her brothers.
As the doctor said, Malala is now back in the arms of her mom and dad, along with her two brothers. The family gathered around her hospital bed at the hospital in Birmingham, England. Her fight in Pakistan was to win the right of all young girls to attend school there. Her father says she has not forgotten the cause. One of the first things she asked for, her school books. After the visit, her dad spoke with reporters and recalled the first horrible days after his daughter had been shot.
God forbid that I told to my brother-in-law that you should make preparations for her funerals. That was a stage. But I'm thankful to God. I'm thankful to all the people all over the world, indifferent to caste, creed, religion, faith, country, age, sex. Everyone across the world. They condemned, they attacked in strong words, and they prayed for my daughter, which is not only my daughter, which is the daughter of everybody.
And that she is. The university in the Swat Valley of Pakistan where Malala was shot has been named after her. Thank you for joining us. Please remember, in future editions of Into the Deep, Bishop DiMarzio will answer your questions. So please email your questions for the bishop to us. The address is currentsny@desalesmedia.org. We may use your question on an upcoming broadcast. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. We leave you tonight with footage from this week's Rosary Rally for Children, led by Bishop DiMarzio at St. James Cathedral. Thank you for watching, and have a good night. I'm Liz Faublas. Tonight on Currents, just over a week to go to the election. We'll get the latest as the campaigns head into the home stretch. That, the latest from the Vatican, and the rest of the day's headlines tonight on Currents.